What's up, Edgar community? Welcome to another live stream. Today we're going over the variations feature in Twitter. So the reason that the variations feature in MeetEdgar, the reason that the variations feature exists is because Twitter has this term of service. They released this back in 2018, last March, two Marches ago in 2018. What it says is you cannot send the same tweet to the same Twitter account more than once, and you can't send the same tweet to multiple Twitter accounts more than once. Their exact language from their press release says you may not post duplicative or substantially similar tweets to one account or multiple accounts that you operate. This is pretty vague, right? Essentially, the reason that they did this is because they want to keep Twitter a really authentic community where they have meaningful conversations, that they're real people connecting over real news, articles, concepts, thought leadership. It's a really good thing that they were aiming to do with this and cut down on spam bots. But it makes it a little bit harder when you're trying to share things like evergreen blog posts to provide that actual value to your community, right? So that's why MeetEdgar actually introduced its variations feature. And when you're loading your posts, I'll show you in a minute how that works. But I wanted to go over just some concepts when you're writing tweets, the way to get the most out of 280 characters, and what you can do to help make your tweets a little bit different so you can still share that same concept, or you can still share that same blog posts. So when it comes down to posting anything on social media, the first things that you want to do is sit down and ask what your intention is behind this post. Is it to build relationships with people? Is it to really help a call to action to sign up for something? Is it your way of getting a little interaction to get engagement with a question that you're providing? Know the outcome that you want and work back from there. I know it sounds simple, but so many of us don't start with the outcome in mind when we're constructing our social media status updates. So know the point of the post and work backwards. You want to always provide a little bit of curiosity. It's kind of like providing a little tantalizing tidbit within your tweet or within any status update that you're writing. And how this can happen is you can even just take like a pull quote from within the article to give people a little bit of a clue on what they're going to get. One of the things that people really like is when expectations match what they receive. Our brain really likes that. So make sure you are leading people to know what they're going to get if they actually click on one of your blog posts, or if they actually click on a link that you're providing, that it's going to match their expectations. Don't get clickbaity. Social networks are really smart about this these days. So make sure if you're providing curiosity that it's going to match their expectation when they click over there. Some things that you can do is really start to reflect your viewpoint on the articles more. So of course, some of your status updates can just be straight up pull quotes from within the article, but make sure you're always putting your own personality and viewpoint in there. That's what thought leadership is about, and that's what expertise is all about. Sharing your opinion, having a point of view, and getting it out online. The purpose is to really tie in your piece of content, your opinion, to your unique selling proposition for why people should follow you, right? We talk about your unique selling proposition in marketing a lot to make sure you're differentiating your product or service from others out there, but this goes through your social media feeds as well. Make sure that you always have something in there that shows how you're different from other information on Twitter or on Facebook. How's that going to work? It's by sharing your opinion. You also really always want to add a little personality. When it comes to this in Twitter, it's a little harder because you do always have those like 280 character limits to do, but it can be something as simple, something that we've seen work really well for just adding a little personality is sharing like a little pull quote or tidbit of the actual post. And then just in parentheses, go ahead and write something like, yes, with an exclamation point after it. That's actually showing your point of view, right? Because you actually go in there and tell people, I agree with this. Yes, excitement. So those are just small things you can do to not take up a lot of character count. But again, remind your followers that you've read this, you endorse this is your opinion about it. Other things that you can start to do to add your personality in there is whip out your thesaurus. A lot of the time, we don't want to go too crazy getting really adjective heavy on Twitter because of that character limit, but this can actually help cut down on your character limit often. If you find you're running out of characters and you need to free up like 20 more characters because you really need to say something, often if you just open a thesaurus, or these days online, of course, open up a website thesaurus, you can look for words that have a similar meaning point that are smaller characters. So it can convey the same point you're trying to get across with less character count. These things take a little extra effort, but that is going to show through to your followers because you're able to pack a real punch with your tweets. And really just start to proofread, verify, and work in your call to action. Every social media post should have something that invites the reader to either write back to you, to click through to learn more, or to get a little bit of your personality and increase your know, like, and trust factor. So when you're doing this, think about ways that you can just rephrase what you're saying. So many of the times, if we tell the same story to like multiple groups of people, you're going to use different language to do that. If you have a really great story you want to tell your grandma and you want to tell your best friend, it's likely you tell it differently with a different tone, with different details, with different words. You can do that for your tweets as well. Of course, you always want to have your audience persona in mind and know what words resonate best with your actual followers, but remind yourself that you can rephrase things and tell a story in different ways. And that is okay. That works for Twitter's terms of service. You also can do things like start changing up the media. The media can actually inform the language you're using. So if you do something like share a blog post and a Twitter card is established with that, a Twitter card is essentially just like a Facebook preview. You can establish that code on your website in order to have a Twitter card established automatically every time you share a link. So you could share with a Twitter card and a pull quote, or you could share a tweet with a different type of still static photo. And you could actually inform the language you're using in your tweet by what's in that photo. So get creative with how the media can actually inform the language that you're using in your tweets. And it becomes a lot easier to think of different variations on how you can say the same concept in different ways. And think really about how you can do things like go on in there and focus on a different detail. You know, for example, we have blog posts a lot of the time that have 4 main points in them. If we can focus on one of those main points in each thing we send out, makes it a lot easier to vary your tweets, right? So it doesn't have to be complicated. Don't overcomplicate it at all. Just always have that call to action and always have something in mind that you can get out there. All right, so next, I'm going to show you how the variations feature in MeetEdgar actually works if you haven't used it before. So what you're going to do when you open up your MeetEdgar account here and you click to add new content is you'll go ahead and select your accounts. Now, this can be used for any social media network. So it's a great way to start to A/B test, sending different messages to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well. This feature was specifically built for Twitter. But again, if you don't test and you don't do that actual experimentation on what language resonates best with your followers, you're not going to know what compels someone to actually click your link or what compels someone to actually reply to you. So this is a great tool to use for all of your social networks. You're then going to either manually add a variation by clicking this Add Variations button here. A second text box will pop up where you're able to just alter the language that you're using. So tell a different story, use a different pull quote, ask a different question. Tell someone something that you really felt strongly related to. Tell them a story about why you wrote that blog post. People love that behind the scenes content. Tell them something funny that you found. Everyone loves a good laugh online, right? Don't overcomplicate it. Just write to people as if you were talking to someone about this article. We forget social media has the word social in it for a reason. If you were to share this article with your best friend in real life when you sat down to coffee, what would you tell her about that? That's a great status update to go ahead and write in here. Now, one of my favorite things about the variations tool is that you're actually able to auto-generate variations. So if you have a blog post in here, so this is a blog post from the MeetEdgar blog, but of course this could be any article. You'll notice the minute I put a URL into our text box, you get auto-generate variations as an option. Now, what does this do? Well, when I click on it, it's actually going to get pull quotes from within that article. How amazing is this? So these are actually being pulled out with this natural language processing within our software, and it's writing your status updates for you. This goes really strongly with that expectation aspect I was talking about at the beginning, that this is a great way to pique curiosity, but also to match the expectations of what people will get if they choose to click on this. And that's how you build trust. You don't want to lead people to a blog post and have that not meet what they're hoping to learn or what they're hoping to consume. That's not a trustworthy behavior, right? So this is a really cool tool to use to have that expectation meeting property built in to your status updates. Another really cool thing that you can do, I know a lot of you out there are podcasters these days. You know it's my favorite medium to consume content in. And auto variations actually works with the show notes of your podcast. So right here, this is MeetEdgar's podcast social post. If I actually just copy this URL to one of our episodes and I paste it into this text box, you'll notice I, of course, get this auto-generate variations. And Edgar is actually getting pull quotes from our show notes in here. How awesome is that? This is a great feature, again, to get your medium from your podcast into a written format for perhaps people who don't love to consume in the audio version. Remember, we need to provide the same content to people in different medias because we don't all like to consume content in the same way. This is a huge respect for your followers to be able to upcycle and repurpose this one well-researched piece of content, your podcast, into some written tidbits that people can actually read, get some value from if they don't have time or if they do not want to listen to the full post. You'll also notice, like when you put a URL in here, Edgar has something called suggested images these days. So suggested images is really cool because it will allow you to add an image from within that post. So these are images being pulled obviously from the podcast link in there, but this could be with a blog too. So you'll notice if I put my blog post right into the add new content screen again, I'll get suggested images of photos that are in that blog post pop up. So if I didn't want like a link preview or a Twitter card to share, I can just click to add one of these suggested images and it will share as a static image. Of course, you always have the option to add more or different ones by uploading from your computer in Edgar, but the suggested image feature is great. Especially think about it if you wanted to do some variations and have these images guide the content that you're writing. So auto variations in general, is one of my favorite features that MeetEdgar provides to you because it truly does save a lot of time. It truly does help you do A/B testing, and it really helps make sure that you're staying in compliance with the social network's rules. Now, when you're doing A/B testing with these variations, you want to know how each one did, right? That's going to be displayed to you in our history tab. So the history tab in Edgar is going to list out everything that Edgar has sent out to the social networks. If you want a little bit more information here, you can always sort your posts by clicking on this all-time clicks column, which will sort the posts from the ones with the most clicks down to the least clicks. And if you want to see how each variation did, this view performance history hyperlink, this will display your variations in a way that it's showing you the ones with the most clicks to the least clicks. This helps guide your content strategy. Remember, we always need to be looking at what is doing the best so that we are listening to our followers, following those breadcrumbs of what they're telling us is doing the best versus what we need to improve upon from likes, shares, comments, all that fun stuff. Cool. So make sure you're paying attention to that information so that you're always providing your followers with the information that they want, because that's how you create a small community. If we're creating in vacuums and we're not looking at that feedback, it makes it a little bit harder sometimes in order to create that strong community. I don't know if you can hear it, but my dog is barking to go out right now, so I'm going to go save him real quick. I will be back with you guys again tomorrow with some more social media tips. And let me know in the comments here, or please email support@meetedgar.com if there's a specific topic that you would like to go over. We go live every single day, and I would love to show up for you and what you need. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.